The first time he met the girl, it was a snowy and windy night. She was standing in the middle of the road, bewildered, as the skidding vehicle headed straight for her. Their second encounter was even more chaotic. She was surrounded by an angry crowd, and there were tears in her eyes. Aside from their third encounter, it seemed that anything concerning the girl would inevitably lead to unexpected situations. This time was no exception. Without delay, Victor grabbed the girl's shoulders and pulled her in front of him. Raising his gun, he took the girl hostage. Aiming the cold muzzle at the girl's temple, Victor felt her tremble slightly, but she immediately regained her composure and did not struggle. She turned her head and quietly looked into Victor's eyes, her eyelashes fluttering.
Victor,
Shh. Before the girl could continue, Victor interrupted her and faced forward. The people before them were whispering apprehensively amongst themselves. Although they had ceased their advance, they did not retreat. The two sides were in a deadlock. Just then, a man emerged from the crowd.
Let them go.
An objection was raised from the crowd, which was quickly silenced as the man, Ares, shot him a cold look and said impatiently,
Do I need to repeat myself?
The crowd slowly made way, having no time to analyze Black Swan's internal conflicts and confirming that the other party had no intention to fight. Victor pulled the girl towards the exit. The moment they passed each other, he heard Ares' low voice.
Don't worry. We will meet again.
Victor turned to face him, but found Ares' attention on the silent girl instead. He frowned and replied lightly,
It won't be too long.
Victor didn't lower his gun until they were safely out of Black Swan's reach. The girl could no longer keep her composure. She raised her hand and began to plead her case.
Stop. You are not yet cleared of suspicion.
I have nothing to do with Black Swan.
Seemingly a little anxious and flustered, she desperately wanted to prove her innocence, but she didn't know how or where to start.
I came for clues about the snowfall.
Victor was still very suspicious of the girl, but for some reason, he hesitated when he saw her glimmering eyes. Slowly, he lowered the gun.
You have inside information on the snowfall?
This show of trust seemed to make the girl happy. She smiled and began to gesture as she explained what she knew. Satellite, sea, concert. Her explanation was so bizarre that even the girl herself seemed to find it unconvincing. She took out her so-called evidence from her pocket, a ticket to a piano concert. Victor merely glanced at the ticket.
This is just your own speculation.
But if we don't stop it...
Gently biting her lower lip, the girl's eyes darted back and forth between the ticket and Victor's face. Finally, having made up her mind, she reached for the car door, but was pulled back into her seat.
You believe me now?
No.
Victor loosened his tie. He had an imperceptible smile in his deep voice.
At your speed, it'll be dark by the time you get back.
It will not.
The girl muttered. She looked much more relaxed. Soothing piano music played in the car, and no one spoke. Snow continued to fall, blanketing their entire world. Victor still remembered their third encounter. It was after a live interview. The hostess nodded.
That is to say, LFG will continue to focus more on the film and TV industry and will be active in its overseas expansion?
Victor was in a pure black suit, his expression solemn and cold. He gently raised his chin, folded his hands, and placed them casually on his lap.
Yes, I've already explained very clearly just now.
He did not raise his voice, but his cold tone exuded a strong sense of alienation.
I will later make further contact with HBS on behalf of LFG. The date and time for the press conference has been set.
So, about this press conference, can you...
Click. The hostess's voice was abruptly cut off as the TV screen went black. Victor put down the remote control and began to loosen his tie. The busy day had finally come to an end. but he didn't show even the slightest sign of relief. Suddenly, the phone on the table buzzed again. Victor frowned, and a flash of fatigue shone in his eyes. He stood up and was once again the calm and fearless leader who had everything under control. After a brief conversation, Victor hung up the phone. As he was about to check the mail, a red dot in the lower left corner of the screen caught his attention. Did I miss a call during the interview this afternoon? Victor clicked on the icon and was surprised by the name on the missed call. Miss Eyes Not on the Road? He remembered the origin of this number clearly. It was snowing that day. Snowflakes landed gently on the girl's hair, but she paid them no mind and quickly handed him a business card. After that encounter, Victor saved her number. But, apart from the 2 previous encounters, he had no further interaction with the girl, so he had no idea why she would suddenly call him. Setting his uncertainty aside, Victor was about to call back when the phone vibrated again. The name on the screen was that girl's. His thumb paused midair for a moment, but finally, he gently swiped to answer.
Hello, Victor? Are you there?
There was obvious joy and surprise in the girl's voice. After a slight pause, Victor responded softly.
Yes, what is it?
I saw the live interview you gave this afternoon. You mentioned you're going to collaborate with HBS.
If he was not mistaken, a similar conversation had already taken place the last time they met. Victor sighed quietly.
This investment decision has been...
I know. I'm not stopping your investment. I've collected some info and done an analysis about HBS. How about I send them to you? Might be helpful.
Perhaps because she was afraid he'd hang up, she hurriedly denied having the same conversation, then stammered before she spoke again.
However, in return, I want you to promise me one thing.
What do you want exactly?
Please don't take this to mean anything. If you disagree, I'll send you the files anyway. I'm no spy.
Indeed. I've never seen a spy as inexperienced as you.
Victor could imagine the panic in her eyes, and he smiled as he continued.
Tell me what you want.
I want souvenirs pudding.
The girl answered quickly, as if she'd had similar conversations countless times, but Victor didn't know what she was talking about.
What's that?
He wasn't sure if it was an illusion, but the voice over the phone seemed a bit sad.
Nothing. I was mistaken. Promise me you'll stay safe at the corporate meeting.
Stay safe? Compared to the confusing pudding just now, this request seemed even stranger.
That's all?
That's all. I don't know whether you remember me mentioning Black Swan. It's hard to explain.
She again emphasized it very seriously.
Whatever. Stay safe.
Perhaps it had been too long since anyone had expressed concern or care for him so earnestly. For a moment, an inexplicable warmth and yearning emerged in Victor's heart. In the end, he just replied in a soft voice.
Okay, I promise you.
Great! I'm sending you the files. Remember to check your mailbox.
As soon as he hung up, Victor heard the notification sound on his phone. He stared at the incoming email, his eyes as dark as the thick night outside the window. He clearly remembered that he had never given her his email address. Victor had his inbox open, but didn't immediately open the email. He thought of Souvenirs pudding, which the girl mentioned just now. She said it so naturally, as if it was a habit that was obviously related to him. But he was sure that it did not exist in his memory. Victor put his hand on the desk and tapped his fingers lightly on its edge, thinking this was not the first time. When he rescued her on the road, he had already felt something peculiar. After that, he even hired a private detective to investigate the girl, but found nothing. She seemed to suddenly appear in this world, yet already knew all about him. Victor wasn't one to ignore something so strange. Since then, he would spare some time every week to go over the private detective's reports detailing the girl's recent actions. It was for this reason that he was able to rescue her from the crowd. In fact, their second encounter was not coincidental. The private detective had told Victor that the girl had visited the production company of Miracle Finder several times. So when he heard about the riot there, Victor immediately rushed to the scene. It was unlike Victor to rely on intuition and act on impulse, but he couldn't ignore that foreboding feeling that lingered in his heart. When he rescued the girl from the crowd, even he might have intentionally ignored the hint of relief he felt. She was a nobody with an unknown background, but somehow when he saw her again, Victor had not the slightest sense of anxiety or danger. In its place was an overwhelming feeling of familiarity, full of intimacy and trust. She was like an accident, yet it felt as though she was supposed to be there to fill some missing part of his life. This was a phenomenon that had never happened before. It was inexplicable, and he didn't particularly feel the need to fight it. Victor looked at the email on the screen and finally opened it. In fact, he had already fully investigated HBS and even Black Swan, but he still carefully read the file the girl sent him. As the minutes ticked by, Victor became increasingly astonished as he read the file. Not because the content of the girl's investigation was different from what he knew, but because he saw traces of himself in how it was analyzed and in its conclusion. Plus, the file showed signs of modification as he would have directed. A conjecture emerged in his mind.